Afternoon all. We'll get started. I'm George. I'm a graduate electrical engineer at Network Rail, and I'm with my colleague Tia.
Hiya, my name's Tia, and obviously I work alongside George, and we joined the scheme at the end of September, so we're looking forward to speaking to you all.
Just a little bit of an introduction to the company. So who is Network Rail? We put passengers first. They're at the heart of everything we do. Millions of people rely on us every single day. We actually own, operate and develop Britain's railway infrastructure. So not necessarily the trains themselves, but the infrastructure. So there's over 20,000 miles of track and 30,000 bridges, tunnels and viaducts. It's the fastest growing, safest railway in Europe. We're a huge organisation, getting bigger every year. I think the last time I checked was something like 45,000 employees. And we have over 200 graduate and placements available across our engineering and business schemes.
So at Network Rail, we have 4 main core values. So it's always about safety, whether that's passengers, workers, anybody involved within the railway. It's always making sure that people get home safe every single day. We have a deep care and a level of understanding for people. So that could be anyone getting the train. It could be people with hidden disabilities or who need additional support. So we work hard to make sure that they can see that we care and putting them first. Teamwork is key, no matter what area you're in, whether you're in the office, on maintenance, working well within a team is crucial, and it's the empowerment to act. So if you know something isn't right, it's just like the train slogan, see it, say it, sorted. So we need to make sure that everyone is in a safe environment, and we should never be afraid to act out and say something to ensure that everyone is safe and looked after.
So a little bit about Great British Railways. So they're sort of the company that we're going to be morphed into over the next sort of coming years. It'll be the biggest change to the railways in 25 years, hoping to end some of the fragmentation of the past and bringing the network under a single national leadership. Great British Railways will own the infrastructure, receive the fare revenue, run and plan the network, and set most fares and timetables, which isn't all necessarily done by Network Rail at the minute. So we, the current infrastructure owner, will be absorbed into that group. Trains will be better coordinated with other forms of transport, such as buses and bikes. And GBR will simplify the current confusing mass of tickets, standardising the mobile and online ticketing, bringing an end to the need for paper tickets as such. And GBR will be better able to respond to changing demand and lead the railways through the challenges of the post-pandemic world, which at the minute changes are quite difficult to make with how the sort of system is. So it's hoping to make that something that's all sort of done under one roof rather than all these different companies that are kind of fragmented at the minute. I think the next slide should be a video that we've got.
As part of the Project Management Graduate Scheme, I complete 3 8-month rotational placements. I've just finished my first placement, which was in the enhancements team, where I was working on access for all schemes. So this is installing footbridges and lifts at stations to allow people with reduced mobility to access these stations and use the trains. And then I've just moved into my second placement, which is the electrification and plant renewals team. So we're upgrading the overhead line equipment and the electrical protection systems. This is in the design phases at the moment, so a lot of it is contract management and stakeholder management. It's a really supportive environment, and I'm always encouraged to browse what training is available, and if there's anything that takes my fancy for my future career, I'm always encouraged to pursue that if I'd like to.
My day-to-day role within Network Rail changes and fluctuates depending on the day and depending on the task or project that I've been given. I'm currently working within the IT Cloud team, where we specialise within Microsoft Azure, where we support the cloud-based solutions to manage the infrastructure within our railway. The support from my line manager is extremely helpful. This is because if you have any questions or queries or any grey areas, you're always able to go to them and ask for advice. This is extremely helpful for us apprentices as we are able to seek advice anytime.
I'm currently with the Structures Asset Management team. So we manage all the structures assets such as bridges, tunnels, retaining walls, and I've also been part of the DICE initiative, so providing digital solutions. Also lead reps for North West and Central, the next cohort of graduate engineers. They encourage all graduates to go for chartership. So for myself, that's with the Institute of Civil Engineers. You also have the opportunity to do self-defined placements with various different teams.
My day-to-day role at Network Rail can be varied due to the rotational aspect of the graduate scheme. So some of the placements I've been involved with include sort of data analysis, economic appraisals of projects, and long-term strategy, looking at long-term planning. I'm part of a really diverse team in Network Rail in terms of gender, nationality, and age. And this is really important to understand the diverse needs of our passengers.
Yes, that was just a bit of an overview. That wasn't every single role that we hold in Network Rail. There are so many more different, more diverse roles, and each day will never be the same. There's always something different that comes up, whether it's meetings, site visits, working externally on a site. And I think that's the joy behind it, is that it's never always going to be the same. That's what I like about it personally. So there are two different routes. So if you're from the business schemes, so if you're from the business end, you can go into commercial and procurement. There's finance, IT and business services, the network strategy and planning, project management and operations management. And although it's in a separate section to engineering, you'd be surprised at how much we do actually work together. And complete tasks together, attend meetings, work on the same project. So it's nice to have that background and know people from different schemes. Engineering wise, there's the civil engineering route, mechanical or electrical, and it doesn't necessarily, you don't have to continue with the engineering route that you've done at university. So I know I did electromechanical when I was at uni, but I preferred the look of the electrical scheme, so I went down the electrical route. So as long as you've got some engineering knowledge and you're passionate about engineering, then you'd be able to go into any of those different schemes and progress forward.
So some of the benefits of the scheme. So graduates, the starting salary is £32,500 and a £2,000 welcome bonus. If you're on a placement like a summer placement or year in industry, it's £17,000 pro rata. You get 28 days annual holiday, and then you get your sort of bank holidays on top of that as well as a whole load of other stuff. So money off season tickets, money off leisure rail travel, gym memberships, health insurance, access to great pension schemes. There's loads of like other sort of leisure benefits as well.
There's plenty of good benefits for different restaurants as well, isn't there, George? So the application process, it's not as complicated as people would assume, considering it's a big organisation. So there's the application form online, so you're able to go through the Network Rail website and see what different routes are available, which ones you're interested in. From that, you'd go on to the online assessment. So it tends to be like a basic English and maths assessment, just to see where you are currently and what knowledge you have. And then this can include a health and safety one. So just bits on safeguarding, which are normally, a lot of general knowledge. What would you do in a certain situation if someone confided something in you? But it's not something to lose sleep over beforehand. If you're successful at the online assessment, you then get taken through to the assessment centre. So when we were applying for the position, it was still very heavily online based due to COVID. So we had interviews through Teams, but again, the technology used, it doesn't hinder anything. They're very understanding. And if you're someone who doesn't like being in a room of people for an assessment. It's a nice, more relaxed way of proceeding through. And then you'll hear your outcome. So hopefully everything will go well and you'll be successful. And the team are lovely. If you have any questions during the assessment or application, they're more than willing to help. Even any silly questions, because you'd be surprised at how many questions you can get asked.
So a little bit about how each of us kind of got into our roles. So for me, I did Masters in Electrical Engineering at uni. Whilst I was at uni between my second and third and fourth years, I did 10-week summer placements with Network Rail in a couple of different teams. And following my second summer placement, I was offered a position on the grad scheme on the back of kind of the work that I'd been doing over the summer. So I started the grad scheme this September just gone. And since then, I've done some placements in power systems team, electrical safety delivery teams. I've been on lots of site visits. So that picture on my slide is when we went up the Forth Bridge in Scotland. That was a really cool day out. We've been like behind the scenes at New Street Station. We got to go to the Shrewsbury old mechanical signal box. There's loads of really cool opportunities. It's been a great couple of months so far.
Yep, so I took a slightly different route to George. So I got my electromechanical engineering degree, and then I decided, because of COVID, I wanted to do something completely different. So I became a primary school teacher, realised that small children who are the size of your knees are not brilliant people to be around all day. So thankfully I made the decision to come back into engineering, and it's been a brilliant journey. So like George says, we had a site visit this morning, so we saw everything behind the scenes from New Street. I've been to Rugby, where I've seen one of the oldest signal stations, and I was able to look at the different mechanics behind it. So the fact it still works after being installed in 1960 was pretty amazing. I'm currently working alongside the Railway Challenge team, so we're designing our own locomotive train to compete in competitions with universities, and the possibilities are completely endless. Nothing's the same, which is what I love. So the picture of me is from a night shift. Yes, you do have to do that. You don't get a nice full night's sleep all the time, but it's brilliant to be able to go out and experience brand new things all the time, and it's a wonderful adventure, and I'd highly recommend it to anybody.
So that's sort of all of our slides that we've got. We just wanted to open it up now if anybody had any questions for us.
Can you guys see the chat? There's already one from Mohammed in there. I'm not too sure. Is it the IT role from Mohammed, that question? I'm not too sure. You'd have to get in touch with the sort of entrance team.
I'm going to let George talk about project management, and I'll answer the deadline question. So for us, the application process ended in January. So you have quite a bit of time to put it in, complete the stuff. The more references, the better that you've got. And before you apply, I definitely recommend reading on the Network Rail website at the different core values, what they expect, what they'd like to hear from you, so that you've got a better understanding of the company and what we offer.
So the project management role, one of my colleagues is doing the project management year in industry scheme. So he's sort of based mainly in research and development. But in terms of, I guess, is it about like the sort of day-to-day aspects of the role? It's kind of like you're kind of planning, generating reports. You'd be working with different teams. So like Tia was saying, like working with different disciplines. If you were sort of a project manager for a couple of different projects, you'd be speaking to engineers, contractors, suppliers, doing that sort of thing. And like I say, like reports, planning, that sort of thing.
In terms of the applications, so qualities, so it's people who can work well within a team, because there's quite a lot of different teams that you have to work with within the company. I personally would say someone who's confident and eager to learn as well. So if you're someone who likes to go out of their way to read more information, or will speak up in a discussion or in a meeting, then that's a brilliant way forward. And they're the kind of people that Network Rail really, really want to work with them, because there's quite a lot of situations where you have to talk to a lot of people, like me and George are today. Even though we can't see you, we are having to speak to you and promote the company, which is something that we really enjoy doing. Is there any position in the Kent area for business graduates? I would probably email the application team to find out. Obviously, I'm based in Birmingham, but there are quite a lot of different roles for graduates all over the country. We know graduates in Scotland, London, Milton Keynes. We know people from all over, so I can't see why there wouldn't be a space there.
And even if there's not necessarily a position in a certain area, so I live in Birmingham, but my contractual location is Milton Keynes. So I travel on average 2 to 3 days a week to the Milton Keynes office, and then the rest of the days I work from home. They're quite flexible with hybrid working. So you have to, you only sort of have to go in if you have to go in. So if there's an in-person meeting, or if there's, a visit that they want you to go on. But there's, like we said, with the benefits, there's like a sort of subsidized season ticket you can get if you're traveling to and from a location quite frequently. So for myself, going from Birmingham to Milton Keynes, I've applied for the season ticket, so I get up to 75% off my cost of my journey. So it is like, I wouldn't say, as long as you can make that journey reasonably, just because there isn't something necessarily based where you live, don't let that stop you from applying, because
definitely.
We're still kind of hybrid working a lot at the minute.
Definitely. And that sort of links into another question we've had about travel and accommodation. So once you're given your base location, so mine is in Birmingham, you're expected to travel to and from there yourself, so paying for it yourself. However, if you're put on placements or have site visits elsewhere, so I know at the start of my job, I had a 2-week placement at Manchester, and they will fund the travel and any accommodation if you're away from your base location, and you get food subsidised as well. So it's not a case of being sent all around the country and not being supported financially. It's just that if you're based at a certain location permanently or for a long period of time, you've sort of got to be able to fund that yourself. So I wouldn't put it as being too far away, unless you're lucky enough, like George, to be able to have multiple work from home days. It is nice to have a Friday as a working from home day, though. I can't complain about that too much.
Yeah. I was seeing a question, the mechanical grad schemes, what modules there are. So if you're a mechanical grad, the sort of path that you would take would probably be like E&P. So it's like the contact systems for the overhead line or third rail.
It's quite a lot of track work and visiting like track sites for the mechanical.
Or fleet services. So that's like sort of maintenance on the fleet trains. So like the maintenance trains, that's sort of the typical routes that a mechanical grad would take. The question from Matthew, there's nothing stopping you from applying for the business graduate scheme. As long as, I'm not too sure what the sort of criteria are for the business grad schemes, but as long as you can sort of demonstrate those in the assessment process, there's nothing stopping you from applying for a scheme that's different to what you've done at uni.
Yeah, that's what I mean. As long as it's somewhat related to it, I think it will be fine anyway. And having that additional knowledge from a different subject area might be able to come in handy. It just depends on the cohort and what they're expecting within that direct scheme. We've had a question. If you have 7 years experience, are you still eligible to apply? It depends on where your experience is. So obviously if you've had an engineering job, they might sort of question why you want to go into the graduate scheme. But if you're able to justify it and discuss that, you know, you want to be able to learn more or work in a different environment, then again, that should be able to work within your favour.
Yeah, there's a similar question. I think, like, don't, just because you've not just graduated, don't let that stop you from applying for the scheme. You know, there's a guy that I know that's like, he finished uni sort of 4 or 5 years ago, and he went out of uni to do a completely unrelated job, and then he's come back like a couple of years after he's finished uni, and he's on the graduate scheme.
Which is pretty much what I did. I got my degree in 2021, and then I did a separate degree. So I did my teaching degree, and I worked as a primary school teacher, and then I've decided to come back. So it doesn't matter if you're finishing your degree this year or if you did it a couple of years ago. If you've got those qualities and the desire to learn and be part of Network Rail, then there's no sort of time limit. You haven't got to get it done as soon as you finish university.
You don't need to have completed your degree to apply. So most people would apply during their final year of uni.
You just have to provide the it's like a provisional grade, isn't it, or like predicted grade, and then once that gets, you'll probably have a conditional offer, and then get it approved once you do get your degree in the end.
Yeah. So the sort of different placements are, there's the graduate scheme, which is once you've graduated. So you would apply for that during your final year of uni, and then go into that once you finish uni, once you are a graduate. If you were looking for like year in industry, or like myself, summer placements, that is a placement rather than a sort of graduate scheme. So that, and you sort of, like I say, your sort of timeframes for that. So your year in industry, that's normally between, I think it's the 2nd and 3rd year, is when most people would do the year in industry. And then the summer placements are sort of between, you know, any year of uni, really. And then you would apply for the graduate scheme, like I say, during your final year to start once you've finished uni, once you've graduated.
Yeah, I've seen quite a few questions where people are saying that they've been in different jobs and different backgrounds and asking if you can still apply for the graduate scheme. And there's nothing stopping you. I'm sure in the other positions that you've had, there are transferable skills. And again, if you're using something that you've got from university, you're still classed as a graduate. So you should be able to transfer it over. Does a year in industry come under the category of an apprentice? I think is it under apprentice, George? The year in industry?
No, I don't think so. I don't think it comes under apprentice. I can't remember off the top of my head, to be honest. But the apprenticeships is something different. So if you haven't sort of gone to uni, you can do an apprenticeship instead, which would either be, I think it's either a level 6 or a level 7 apprenticeship, and that's like a kind of a course with work alongside sort of learning as well, to get a qualification.
Yeah, but we do, Network Rail do offer the apprentice route as well. So it's not only, you know, capped at graduate scheme, that we do offer apprenticeships as well, but you just have to look on the website to double check the requirements for that one. I was a primary school teacher for 2 years. I did year 6 and year 3, and I really missed working with adults and working alongside trains. So that's the reason I changed and came back. But again, I had transferable skills, and the positive mindset towards wanting to work in this industry was definitely a benefit. So again, even if you've had a different job but you're really interested in joining, don't let that stop you from joining the company. Joshua says, can you apply for multiple different grad schemes? No, I don't think so. I think you just apply for the one. So I'd check out what different placements and opportunities are available and which one you would prefer to go into or which one you think you're better suited for. When you join, if you find that you prefer the mechanical side of things, then there's always the opportunity to do mechanical placements and possibly transfer then. But initially joining, I would just stick to applying for one graduate scheme.
So in terms of getting back to people that are in the process of the application, Tia and I aren't from the recruitment team, so you'd have to get in contact with whoever you've been applying with. We don't know anything specific about the sort of internal workings of the recruitment process, so we're not going to be able to give you dates of when you're likely to hear back or anything about assessment centres, unfortunately.
Yeah, it will depend on when the deadline is and how long it can take. So when we joined, there were just under 200 graduates. So as you can imagine, there were probably triple the amount who actually applied. So it is quite a long process. I think the actual process itself took about 2 months in total for me. So from the starting date through the interview through to finally getting the offer. Kathleen has asked, does the salary change depending on location? No, it's the same salary wherever you are based. And then obviously as you progress and work up through the different job roles, then your salary will change then.
I think there might be a London zone allowance, but I wouldn't be able to give you any more specifics on that. And I don't think for graduates that applies, but I might be wrong. I'm not too sure.
Are there any roles more of a focus on the environment? There probably would be more of a role on the environment through the business scheme. So it could be to do with project management. So we do have a lot of vegetation projects. So making sure the environment is in a safe and neat sort of structure around the railway. So there are different ways to approach that through the business scheme side of things, or the mechanical, because again, quite a lot of mechanical engineers work on track. So they're actually able to, sort out vegetation. I've seen multiple projects where we're trying to protect different forms of wildlife and nature through the railway.
It's a really big part of our sort of company vision at the minute. There is a really big focus on the environment and
absolutely
renewables, etc. So in terms of placement, I'm from your question, I think, is that what you're looking for, like a year in industry placement? There's a few in my office, year in industry students that are in the environment and sustainability teams or the safety teams as well. So yeah, if you wanted to do like an environmental sort of role, I wouldn't suggest applying for an engineering type role, because they're going to be, whilst like the environment is an aspect of engineering, that's not going to be what the most of the role will be. An engineering scheme is going to be more like sort of technical rather than like environment and sustainability as such.
Tips for interviews, I would say be confident. Make sure you put yourself out there, and don't be afraid to ask questions. So even if they ask you a question and you're not sure the answer, be honest. Don't lie your way through it or take an educated guess. Just say that, I'm not sure about this one. I can find out and get back in touch with you. Network Rail truly value honesty, rather than just lying because you think it's going to get you somewhere. So I know I had a couple of questions during my interview, and I asked them, I said, can I let you know the answer later on? And I ended up emailing it back to them after I'd researched it. And obviously that might not be the only reason I got my position. But it really helps to show that you are invested and you will put the work in. Again, I definitely read through the Network Rail website and see what different aspects they're looking for, look at what you're interested in. I believe one of the questions was to do with finding new ways to generate energy. I don't know if you had that same question, George, but coming up with brand new ideas that are your own are much, much preferred over like going straight on Google and taking the first search result.
Yeah, they want to see that you can like sort of think critically. They want to see your
innovative
thought process.
Yeah,
they don't want to just like they're not interested in whether you can remember equations from uni or anything like that. It's not like specific technical questions. It's more about how you work with other people, how you kind of think on the spot, and whether you can think like sensibly and logically. Rather than just blurting out theory from lectures or anything like that. I've seen the question, do the graduate schemes offer flexibility? So like we sort of said earlier, the scheme, we have a 35-hour working week as standard. I'm not sure if there's sort of whether you can change your contractual hours. But for myself and Tia and sort of all the other graduates on the scheme, the typical work week is 35 hours. You perhaps do a couple of days in the office. So like I do, like sort of on average 2 or 3 days in the office, and then 2 or 3 days working from home. It's not, you don't have like shifts if you're sort of office based. Obviously, if you're doing like maintenance or something like that, you will have shift, like it will be shift work. But from a sort of in the office working, as long as you attend all of the meetings that you need to be in, and you're contactable when you need to be, you can work. You could just do, say, I don't know, 8 till 1 on one day, but then 8 till 5 the next day, depending on your commitments. As long as your line manager's happy for you to do that. I know mine's really happy. Some days I'll work like 8 hours, some days I'll work 6. As long as I average over the week my 35 hours, they don't really mind too much when you are doing those hours.
Yeah, I completely agree. Kathleen asked if we're guaranteed a job after completing the graduate scheme. So we've been told that we're guaranteed a job within Network Rail, but it's our responsibility to find that position. So there won't be a job given straight to us. We'll have to go out and talk to different departments, talk to different leaderships, and obviously apply for a position. But Network Rail will like keep you and support you until you get a job offer in the end. So it's not a 2-year scheme and then you have to go and find a different company. Once you're fortunate enough to become part of Network Rail, you're welcomed into that family for life, pretty much.
Yeah, we sort of keep. So how our scheme works is we do 6-month placement rotations in different business areas. So as and when you feel comfortable to start applying for roles, you'll start applying. But if you're unsuccessful, you'll just keep doing placement rotations until you find the job that is best suited to you.
But you'd be surprised at how many different roles there are within each organisation and each different building. So the possibilities are endless. And if you're based so I'm based in Birmingham, but if I wanted to take a job position in Liverpool or Edinburgh and I applied for it and got it, then Birmingham would support me and I would be able to get a job there. So you're not only linked and tied down to your base location, if that makes sense. Interview questions. So I think the interview questions were pretty much the same across the board. So you'll get a question about safeguarding and what you do in a certain situation. I know there was a case study on my interview where I had to identify problems or concerns on a certain railway. So it was like there was loose bricks on a bridge, the fence had been torn down and stuff. And it's just asking what you can bring to the company. So again, if you go online and search in, top qualities required in a company, Network Rail have probably got those up on a screen next to them and are seeing if you're reading it from the internet. So try and speak from yourself. What can you bring? What do you have that you think we would need as part of the company? And just be yourself, pretty much.
So the question about taking part in research, I'm not entirely sure what you mean with the question. If it's that you wanted to have a research commitment alongside the graduate scheme, you can work a second job. They're not going to tell you that you can only work for them at that time, but it'll be whether there's a conflicting interest in that second job. So you'll have to register that. And as long as that it's not having a impact on your fatigue level, like we said at the start, safety is like the most critical part of our roles. So it'd just be a conversation with your line manager, whether they'd be happy for you to continue that work outside of it. If it's that you wanted to take a position in a different company to do research as part of the scheme, I know that there are graduates that have done placements in other companies whilst being on the Network Rail graduate scheme, but that comes down to managing that with your line manager and with the host manager at the other company. So there are definitely ways, you don't just have to stay in Network Rail. You could work with one of our partnership companies. It'd just all have to be agreed with your line manager or with the other company as well. The question about sponsorship, I know that they do offer work visas. I know somebody in mine and Tia's cohort that got a sponsorship as part of their graduate scheme. So that is something that we do offer. Yeah.
I think we've approached every question, if not almost every question. But if you have got any more, feel free to get in touch with Connor or whoever has invited you onto this meeting, and we'll try and get back in touch with you to be able to answer it. Quite a lot of the questions will be on the Network Rail website, and the team are very welcoming. If you sent an email asking a question, the chances are they'll respond and point you in the right direction with things.
Amazing. Thank you for coming, everyone. We're about to end the event. Have a great day. And as I said, if you need anything, please drop us an email.